The camera glides over the dark waters of the Atlantic, near the coast of the Canary Islands, on a moonless night. A lone figure watches the horizon from the deck of a luxury yacht. Suddenly, a thud, a shadow, and silence is broken in the infinite sea. It is November 5th, 1991, and Robert Maxwell, a world press magnate, disappears in the blink of an eye of night. No one sees him fall. The only thing left at dawn is the shocking sight of his body stranded in the waves. This documentary story delves into the life of a powerful family, the Maxwells, and their connection to one of the darkest scandals of the global elite, the sex network of financier Jeffrey Epstein. We will discover the golden legend of a tycoon who rubbed shoulders with kings, politicians, and secret services, and the role of his youngest daughter, Ghislaine, the supposed Madame, who united innocent young people with the most perverse side of power. Through vivid images and dramatic reconstructions, we will trace the rise and fall of this dynasty, as well as the implications that reach to the present day. Chapter 1. The Rise of Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell was born under a different name in a village in the Carpathians. Orphaned by Nazism and a survivor of Auschwitz, he fought in World War II under the British Army. He was decorated by Montgomery after standing out on the Allied front. After the conflict, Robert Maxwell became a bold entrepreneur. He founded Pergamon Press, an academic publishing house that sold millions of textbooks around the world. With his contacts in the Allied occupations, he obtained millionaire contracts to supply universities in the United States and Africa. Without losing the air of an ex-soldier, Maxwell knew how to move pieces in influential circles to build a small publishing empire. Maxwell's ambition knew no bounds. In the 70s and 80s, he dominated entire media. He owned the powerful Daily Mirror in London and the influential Macmillan Publishing Group in the United States, as well as magazines, radio stations, and even a Swiss bank. He was seen arriving at parties in luxury cars, surrounded by bodyguards, and dining with billionaires in ostentatious halls. Even his own children worked in his companies, Christine and Isabel in technology projects, Ian and Kevin managing football clubs, and Ghislaine timidly participating in social events. Maxwell's name echoed in every pocket of power, as his face smiled on front pages, and his authority grew every day. Chapter 2. Power Behind the Scenes, Politics and Intelligence. Maxwell was a master of exhibitionism and, at the same time, a man shrouded in secrecy. He rubbed shoulders with royalty and rulers on a daily basis. Photographs show him toasting with Queen Elizabeth II or conversing with Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. In the most exclusive salons of London and New York, Maxwell closed lavish deals between a waltz and a toast. However, behind that facade ran disturbing rumors. It was said that Maxwell took advantage of his opulent parties to win favors and even spy on conversations. The history books of espionage tell that Maxwell was the subject of investigations by the British and Israeli services. Some official reports from the 60s even recommended not to fully trust him. He was even linked to the Promise software case. It was speculated that the tycoon distributed altered versions of that program to sell his secrets to covert allies. Whether true or legend, everything about Maxwell was double-edged: a media empire in the public eye and a network of dark alliances behind the scenes. Chapter 3. The Mysterious Death. The story takes a brutal turn on the night of November 5th, 1991. Robert Maxwell sails alone on his yacht, Lady Ghislaine, anchored in the Atlantic near Tenerife. The atmosphere is calm, the sea is still, the crew is sleeping under the stars. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, a thud is heard. A sailor wakes up with a start. The tycoon has disappeared from the deck. Only the echo of the agitated water remains while the others shout his name and throw lanterns into the sea. At dawn, the news explodes. A fisherman has found a body floating near the Canary Coast. It's Robert Maxwell. No one sees marks of violence, only a slight scratch on the shoulder. Daily Mirror photographer Ken Lennox travels with the widow, Betty, to identify him. Lennox recalls Maxwell dressed in pajamas, lying in the overhead infirmary with his beard combed back, almost intact, as if he were sleeping. Her brutal fall leaves nothing but questions: accident in the dark, or something even more sinister. The shock turns into scandal when the reason for that fall is discovered. A few days later, it was revealed that Maxwell had diverted hundreds of millions of dollars from his company's pension funds to plug financial holes. Newspaper headlines instantly replace the Mirror's savior with the thief who betrayed his workers. While the pension funds are empty, the empire is crumbling beyond repair. The fallen leader now rests in a walnut coffin on his way to Jerusalem, and behind him are orphaned children and a gigantic financial hole to be explained. Chapter 4. Ghislaine in New York. The news of his father's death shakes the Maxwell family. Each child reacts in his or her own way. Ghislaine Maxwell, the youngest and most rebellious, hears the news from thousands of miles away. Shortly after completing her studies at Oxford, she had already embarked on a new life in New York, carrying with her the social heritage of her family name and an aristocratic aura. She was 30 years old. The image of the sophisticated princess had been carved out by riding a private jet with her father, wearing jewels and surrounded by an entourage of admirers. That fatal night on the yacht did not find her present, but it would change her destiny. Ghislaine quickly becomes the right-hand man of Jeffrey Epstein, an elitist financier with secret habits. They traveled together on their private jet, attended select parties, and shared social circles. In 2005, they even appeared together at a charity gala. Maxwell in an elegant long dress, Epstein in a tuxedo, posing, smiling for the cameras. In the media, she was baptized as Epstein's Madam. Officially, no one had yet accused her, but her entourage was filled with suspicion. The press insinuated that she managed her mansions and attended to her most powerful guests. Chapter 5. Epstein's Network. Jeffrey Epstein's empire thrived in secret for years. His mansions and properties, the 7-story residence in Manhattan, the mansion in Palm Beach, his private island in the Caribbean, became the setting for a macabre game. At their clandestine parties, guests in dark suits laughed by illuminated pools, while behind the curtains, innocent shadows moved. Teenagers appeared dressed in white or light robes, dancing with nervous smiles in front of powerful businessmen and politicians. In this private brothel, the perpetrators paid favors, and the young victims were mere objects of exchange. Epstein operated with ruthless methods. Young women were lured with promises: a language course, a possible job, a scholarship. What they found was a trap. Testimonies collected later reveal that the girls entered thinking about a job interview and left with emotional wounds. Many describe how, disoriented, they ended up in hidden corridors, given over to large men. The hidden cameras saved each of those moments. They took photos or videos. They fell without being able to resist. Ghislaine Maxwell was an integral part of this machinery of abuse. The survivors said that she was present at the hirings. She would meet them in the lobby, chat with them feigning interest, and then direct them to Epstein. To the victims, it all seemed like a coldly prepared act. Maxwell would tell them what to wear, ask them to try on evening shoes, to wear makeup. Every detail was ordered with the precision of an invisible executioner. Those who managed to flee agree that Ghislaine manipulated them with a smile as she led them to suffering. Chapter 6. The Judgment and Fall of Both. The beginning of the end began in July 2019. The FBI broke down the doors of Epstein's Manhattan mansion and arrested him on federal charges of sex trafficking minors. He was accused of organizing a network of massive exploitation. Less than a month later, on August 10th, his body was found lifeless in the New York jail. The official autopsy reported that he had committed suicide. His death, surrounded by mysteries and conspiracy theories, left many incredulous. Epstein, the man who knew secrets of so many, escaped from a bench turned mausoleum. Almost at the same time, justice turned its gaze to Maxwell. In June 2020, she was formally charged in New York with helping Epstein recruit victims. In early July, she was detained in an isolated cabin in New Hampshire. The press captured the moment. Ghislaine, with an expressionless expression, entered a police vehicle in handcuffs. This time, there was no free will. He was placed in pretrial detention, finally illuminating the end of that dark story. The empire was beginning to crumble. With Epstein missing and Maxwell in custody, the mechanics of the cover-up were definitively broken. Both were caught up in the same scandal, with no one to protect them. Chapter 7. Maxwell's children and the family legacy. The fall of Robert Maxwell also meant the collapse of the dream of a family predestined for wealth. Of Robert and Betty's 9 children, 2 died in infancy, 1 from leukemia and 1 after a car accident. The 7 survivors, each in their own way, were caught up in the scandal. Christine and Isabel, the older twins, moved away from the spotlight. They emigrated to Silicon Valley in the 90s and co-founded an internet company, Magellan, dedicating themselves to technology. There, they achieved a prosperous life without flaunting their father's surname. Kevin and Ian Maxwell, the boys, lived through the most visible aftermath. Both had worked with their father, and when they were in charge, they saw how everything fell apart. Kevin was prosecuted in 1996 for accounting irregularities, but was eventually acquitted. However, he was ruined. By 1992, his debts exceeded £400 million, making him Britain's largest personal debtor. Ian, more discreet, supported charity projects in Greece, away from the media spotlight. Eventually, both were able to rebuild part of their lives, although the shadow of the Maxwell scandal marked them forever. Ghislaine, the youngest, had a different fate. As her siblings dispersed, she rose in notoriety. Now, facing justice, she once again wielded the spotlight, but from the bench. With his conviction in 2021, the Maxwell surname was forever associated with treason and perversion. His old empty palaces and his name resonate as a warning. The legacy of absolute power has become the bitter lesson of ephemeral impunity. Chapter 8: The Trial of Ghislaine. In November 2021, the most anticipated trial began. Ghislaine Maxwell entered the New York federal court looking as impeccable as ever, but with the slow pace of a defendant. That morning, photographers captured the image of the woman standing, flanked by officers as she entered the stand. Gone is the mansion closed by the police. Once a place of opulent parties, its salons would now fulfill the mission of listening to old confessions. Over the next few weeks, the victims took the stand one by one. With a trembling but firm voice, each woman recounted her ordeal before the judges and jury. They told how Maxwell had manipulated them, the deceptions, the hidden places, the names of the guests. One young woman described their first meeting. They made her dance in Palm Beach without her knowing what to expect. Another recalled a secret entry into the London mansion that ended in nightmares. Each testimony was a thread that unraveled the hidden skein. Finally, on December 29, 2021, the verdict was announced. The judge asked for silence. The jury found Maxwell guilty of the felonies with which he was charged. The room erupted in whispers and incredulous hugs. For the survivors, it was a long-awaited triumph. For the defendant, a conviction with no turning back. The sentence came in June 2022, 20 years in prison. On hearing the sentence, Maxwell remained mute, barely moving a muscle. The judge underlined the cruelty of his actions and the coldness with which he manipulated the victims. As she was transferred to the federal prison in North Carolina, no one imagined that years later she would still face legal turns. That day, once again, human justice fulfilled its part. The one that the secret sphere had violated, now the law was in charge of applying it. Chapter 9: Subsequent Repercussions. Ghislaine's fall and Epstein's end left a legacy impossible to ignore. The victims, previously silenced, found solace in the partial justice achieved. Virginia Giuffre, for example, transformed her experience into activism. She told her story in a book and created a foundation that helps victims of trafficking around the world. In addition, a $1 million fund from Epstein's estate was used to compensate the survivors. Dozens of women received financial and psychological support thanks to that fund. In 2022, Virginia Giuffre managed to get Prince Andrew of England to reach an economic settlement out of court, giving visibility to her case. In the public sphere, there were important shocks. In the U.S., the media exposed the mistakes of prosecutors and agents. Then Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, responsible for the controversial 2008 agreement with Epstein, had to resign. Civil society and congressional leaders demanded transparency. In 2025, a federal judge refused to open the grand jury minutes against Maxwell, arguing that they would not provide new information. However, the political atmosphere remained tense. Several congressmen presented bills to toughen laws against international sex trafficking and review past conventions more rigorously. Society demanded clear answers and real protections, like never before. Culturally, the case became a topic of global reflection. Streaming platforms released documentaries about this financial network and its ethical implications. Debates about power and corruption are organized in universities, citing the massive theft of Maxwell's employees and retirees. Social networks revive the memory every time a leak appears. Young activists mention number no impunidad in every election cycle, using this story as a warning against any untouchable elite. New curricula in schools incorporate recent cases to teach democratic values. Undoubtedly, this dark chapter opened the door to urgent conversations about justice and transparency. Unfortunately, online conspiracy theories haven't gone away. Some sensationalist videos and reports falsely announced the mysterious death of Virginia Giuffre, one of the most vocal victims. In reality, these are baseless inventions. Giuffre is still alive and continues to bear witness. These falsehoods only show how necessary it is to contrast sources and not get carried away by viral rumors. Chapter 10. The Present in 2025. Today, the saga is still valid. In July 2025, Maxwell's lawyers went to the U.S. Supreme Court asking to review his conviction. They allege that a 2007 plea deal, in which Epstein obtained impunity, protects her as well. As judges decide whether to review the case, new pieces of the puzzle have come to light. For example, it emerged that in the spring of 2025, prosecutor Todd Blanche, who is responsible for the terrorism cases, visited Maxwell in prison, leading to speculation that he might cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for reduced sentence. In Washington, the case has resurfaced on the public agenda. During 2024, criticism of the government intensified for not making all the documents public. President Biden ordered reviews, but a district court kept most of the minutes sealed. Official sources defended that the key was already in the trial. While conservatives close to Trump are clamoring for absolute transparency, the Justice Department assures that there is no master list of accomplices. Thus, the story continues. In 2025, many media outlets are investigating whether there are any powerful names involved, while public opinion demands hearings and new legal filters. The focus is now on Ghislaine. Maxwell's offer to testify before Congress in exchange for a reduction in his sentence ignited a new debate. Activists demand that such collaboration force the disclosure of any accomplices involved. At the same time, several congressmen promoted new bills to toughen penalties for sex trafficking and demand even more transparency in these cases. In 2025, the saga continues to defy justice. The global public follows every new development closely. The only certainty is that for now, none of the curious eyes of the world look away. Final thoughts. The rise and fall of the Maxwell family and Jeffrey Epstein leave us with inescapable lessons. Those who believed that money and influence would make them untouchable ended up facing their most terrible truth. Power, as dazzling as it is, turned out to be fragile in the face of the determination of silenced voices. For years, lies and favors protected the elite, but when it came time to accountability, it was justice, albeit belatedly, that broke that spell. Today, we know that many of the victims live, tell their stories, and fight so that this plot is not repeated. The story reminds us that the secrets that are woven in the domes can impose themselves on the law for a while, but the truth always ends up discovering them. This case teaches that the search for truth and solidarity with the victims are the most powerful weapons against corruption. The memory of those who suffered must inspire justice in the future.